Welcome, everyone, to this week's podcast. I am here with a very special guest today. This is Paula Burns, a creative business mentor, which the title fascinates me, absolutely fascinates me. So, would you like to give everybody a little introduction into who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I know. Do you know what? That title fascinates so many people because, and this just goes to show what it is that I help people with because it is very much about how are you going to stand out from all the noise? Because there's a lot of people out there who might be doing exactly the same thing as you, but they're not. Because I say there is nobody doing exactly the same thing as you because they can't do it exactly the same way as you do it. But you have to be aware of what those things are that you can make it very, very unique. So I'm all about helping you build your own unique confidence and bringing out a very clear, powerful message on the basis of that. So with what I've done is creativity is my core. So the creative bit of my mentoring is how can I help you with how your messaging comes out? How are you saying the words? How are you conversing with your potential clients? And how are you then also how are you showing up? So how are you presenting yourself? Things around that, and how can you do that a little bit differently? And also, to do with the offerings, what are you offering your client? How can you or your customers, how can you make that a little bit different than everybody else is doing? So can you package that up in a different way? And when I say package, I don't mean physically package. I mean as in, right, this is my offer and you've offered it in a different way to everybody else. I've got some examples of that, but I don't want to go on and on unless you ask me some questions.
Yeah, well, do you know what? The reason that I wanted you to come in was because, like, as direct sellers, we're with a company. We sell a set product.
Yeah,
Lots of people who are watching this, they may be like skincare, and it'll be a specific brand of skincare, or wax melts, and it'll be a specific brand of wax melts. And a lot of people feel like they're competing against all these other people who sell the same
absolutely.
thing. You're shaking your head. I know exactly what you mean because I say exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
Um, but it's not about the product. People buy people.
they do.
And and this is what I think that you can really help my audience understand.
Mm,
And
mm.
especially when it comes to that being different from everybody else, why should people buy from you
Well,
as a skincare specialist or,
yeah.
somebody who sells wax melts to somebody who does exactly the same thing on the same street as you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it's that thing about people. We've heard this over and over again. People do business with people.
Mm,
So, in its very basic form, people might want to come to you and not to the person next door
yeah.
because they just love you. They love your energy. They want to give the business to you because you just shine for them. So that's the basic form of that. How can you grab their attention? I used to, and this is where all my mentoring and my training came from. This side of my business is I used to run events for small businesses, like the types of businesses that you work with, or just independent traders. I used to run those events for people to promote and sell. Now, this is a great example of me thinking outside the box and be very, very different. I saw, and this is what I help people do, because it's not always easy to see. I say to people, I see things that other people don't. And that doesn't mean that I'm seeing ghosts or anything like that. You tell me something, and I'm like, have you not thought about doing it like this? And they're like, what? And it's a completely different way that nobody else is doing it. And what I did with these events is that I was at the time, I was my partner, he was involved in stalls and doing market stuff and, events and things like that. And so he was very much linked to a lot of independent traders and all of that. And I was finding that the types of places, and that's how I found out that there were so many talented people out there, people who were selling things that that I thought, oh my gosh, this is just wow. But the types of places they were selling at were church halls, community
Mhm.
centers, just really places that nobody had ever seen them. They were just really dead. I'd go along to these events and say, this is wasted talent. Why aren't people seeing this? So I could see there was an issue there. And I'm based in Newport in South Wales, and there was a brand new Tesco store being built in very close to me. And I remember when they replaced an old store. The old store was a bit, very tired, and they replaced it with this huge flagship store. And the store was one of these stores, is one of these stores where you go in on the bottom level, and there's this huge space, and there's shops within the supermarket. And I know they've got them in a lot of places now as well, but it was flagship at the time. Everybody was just wowed with this huge store. And then you went up the escalators and you went into the main store. But the ground floor just had this huge, it was like an aircraft hangar, really, just huge space. And then there was spaces for other shops along the way. And when I walked in, this is what I mean about seeing things that other people don't see. Everyone else was going, oh my God, this store is amazing. Look at this. We've got this now in Newport. And I'm looking around going, this space would be amazing for people to sell from. And I thought my head's going around, and because I was in the events, I'm in the events, and I started off my business career in events, so I'm an events person as well. And I thought I could run these types of events in this space. It's a perfect space. So all I did is I went up into the store and asked to speak to the manager. And again, a lot of people think you need to do this thing while you write a big proposal, and you've got to speak to head office and all of this stuff. And I thought, no, my first discussion is going to be with the manager. And I spoke to the manager, said, look, I could run these events for you. They're independent. And he just looked at me, wasn't quite sure what I was going on about. But he did a wonderful thing. He put me in touch with their community champion. I had no idea that every Tesco store has a community champion. They look after things to do with supporting the community, raising money for
Yeah.
their charity, all of those things. And then basically where it came from that. So I introduced something called Fabtastic Shopping. And I ran those events for about 7 years from that store, from Tesco store. And I had about 6 stores on board by the time I stopped. And they were just fantastic events because Tesco loved them, their customers loved them, the independent traders loved them. Nobody was offering them that. So I stood out as an event organizer who put on great events for people to go along to, and a great atmosphere as well, and where there was people flowing through. That is just one example of
Mm.
ideas that I will come up with, and I will help my clients to come up with. And what I do as well is that it's not about me just coming up with crazy weird ideas. It's about understanding who that individual is and what might fit with the
Yeah.
type of person that they are.
Yeah.
So,
And I
yeah,
think not enough people think like that, do they, Paula?
yeah.
Because I know some people can have very linear thinking and some people have a more creative brain. And I used to think I wasn't creative. I would always tell myself, oh, I'm not creative. I can't draw. I'm not crafty. I'm not into all these like macrame and stuff. That's not
Oh.
me. I can't paint. So I used to think I wasn't creative, but actually
Mhm.
my brain is very much like yours. I see ideas. I'm open to different experiences and can see how other things might work differently for other people
Yeah.
and those gaps that need filling.
Yes. Yeah,
And
exactly.
and I think everybody's got that power,
Mm.
but it just needs pulling out somehow.
It does. It does. And it's like getting past the fear as well, because you see
Mm,
things and you think, oh, well, no, that'll never work. Or you might come up with an idea and you think, well, that won't work. Well, you don't know until you ask the questions whether or
yeah,
not that will work. And it doesn't have to be say something as big as that
no,
that you're going to take over somewhere or go whatever. It could be just the way that you describe what you do.
yeah.
Can you describe it in a different way? Can you put it together as a different type of offering than you're doing now? If, for instance, if it's beauty products or that type of thing, can you package your lipstick and something else and create something that's a little bit different that people will go, oh, that's good. That's a good idea. Can
Yeah,
you do it there? And again, these are the things then that I work with business owners on, predominantly female business owners I work with because I feel like, you know, we can sabotage ourselves a lot, and especially midlife when we're coming into business at a later age, it's like trying to be like everybody else and not realizing that you're bringing a lot of experience to the table already. And you
yeah,
can incorporate that experience in how you show up now with your business. So, the stepping stone for people who work with me is usually my done for you social media posts because of the way I write. I'm a creative writer. Nobody else can do it right like me. I write it again, and I like people to own that about themselves. Once you know what you're really good at, own it.
oh yeah,
No one else
absolutely.
can do it like that. And so, this is why, when I write posts for people, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's me." I love it. It's just like, yeah. So yeah, it's all about the creativity for me.
Yeah. So talking of that, oh, that's so me. In your social media, I know that a lot of people in direct sales can fall foul of the posts and the ideas that the company put through to
Yeah.
advertise the products.
Mm.
And I know that if you want to get your messaging across on social media and stand out from everybody else, is that you have to be unique. You
Yeah.
have to show you because people have to build that like, know, and trust with you. And that is so difficult. Can you give us some tips on how you can stand out as you on social media?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we talked about this earlier, that first things first, your foundation has to be you have to understand who you're talking to.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. So you know
Yeah.
who your potential client is. And I don't mean when you do this exercise, I don't mean that they're female. Because a lot of the times
Female, 30 to 55, lives in a semi-detached house. Oh
no,
my goodness me.
no. Oh, you need more
No.
than that. You need to
Oh.
put more depth into it than that. But the more depth you put into it, is the easier it becomes to write your posts because you're
Yeah.
actually speaking to a specific type of person. So when you understand who that person is, you understand where they show up, how they'll be feeling, what kind of experiences they might be going through. And so that helps you when you write your posts because you've got a whole host of things to write about. If you're thinking about a specific type of client, you can say, you know, oh, did you go to the coffee shop this morning? How were you feeling? Did you feel you could start your post by saying something like that because that type of person would do that. Or,
Mm.
you can talk about, something that you watched on TV recently and, bring it back to your product and how it suits. If you were talking about lipstick, for instance, it could be you watch something on TV and you love the color of somebody's lipstick and you ask people, well, what did you think of that? We do something quite similar. Do you think it's similar? And again, it's bringing life and quality into, the post. It's not just
Yeah.
saying, this is what I sell, buy it. This is
Yeah.
how much it is, buy it. You're actually putting some story around it as well.
Yeah, and letting people get to know you and what you stand for and how you
Yeah.
talk and I think that bit is missing from so many people's
Mm.
social media across my industry, the direct selling
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah.
because you it's something that is not very easy to do.
No, it isn't. It isn't easy to do. And I totally get it, which is why, I offer that service, but also there are sound bites and things that people learn because, like I said, I share those tips as well. It's
Yeah.
what are some of the starting sentences that you can use? How could you
Yes.
end a post? How can you give it a cliffhanger? What we
Yeah.
call a cliffhanger, keep want people wanting more. how many ways can you say buy my stuff without saying buy my stuff?
Yeah,
You
and
know?
that's what social media is looking for right now, isn't
Yes,
it? Those
exactly.
types of posts. And I think all it can take sometimes is a big brainstorm about
Yes.
what you've got, how it helps people,
Yeah.
and looking at what other posts you see on social media and thinking, well, actually, I quite like the way that one's been worded.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could do something similar with what I sell,
Mm,
and that would create some intrigue and interest around what I'm doing
yeah.
rather than that whole, oh, this cleanser's £20.
But it's also, again, it's coming back to this thing that you have to be sold on it yourself. You have to be
Mm,
totally connected with it. So whatever it is you're saying, you have to feel it. I always say,
yeah.
confidence, your self-confidence isn't something you can learn. You have to
No.
feel it. And so, that's why I always start with, let's find out about you. Whoever I'm working with, I always ask all these questions. Tell me about you. And I ask all these key
Yeah.
questions about them. That's the only way that I can really sort of dig deep and work with them and move them forward.
Mm.
Because some people have to be reminded who they are.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people go into direct selling with a lack of confidence
Yeah.
anyway. They go in because, they love the product, so they're not business owners. They don't really like talking about themselves. A lot of
No,
people don't like talking about
no.
themselves. And showing up as on social media where all your friends are as a business owner, that's
Mm.
that's quite a scary thing for somebody to do.
The hard thing. It's
It
like,
is.
yes, you're looking around everybody else, and especially when you're new, that
Mm,
is hard because, but there's something Brené Brown said, and I don't know anybody who's listening to this and they've heard of Brené Brown, or if you haven't, just go and listen to some of her talks and stuff. And one of the things she said in one of her talks was, don't take feedback from people in the cheap seats
mm, yeah,
because the people you will realize that the people who have got something to say or negative stuff to say about you are the people that actually aren't doing anything.
yeah,
And, they're just watching from the background and going, oh, that'll never work. Oh, look at her doing that, whatever. So
yeah,
I know. And I know that's not easy to do because especially when you're just walking into that space and everything and you've got all those people around you, I know it's not easy. It's not something you can just switch on. But it's about remembering, always, reflecting back and remembering why you're doing this and why you're so passionate about it, why you
yeah,
love doing it, and all of these things. And again, it'll take you back to that place where, why are you doing it? Are you doing it because you love it? Do you love the products? So do you really love the products, or are you just doing it because you've heard that this is something's going to make you money? You know?
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you can tell the difference between people who are really in this because they absolutely love what they do and what they sell,
Yeah.
and those that don't. And
Mm,
I think um, it's a massive learning curve.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. So one thing that I did want to ask you was, we talk about messaging an awful lot. We talk, getting your messaging right.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I mean, why is it so important to get your messaging right? It's a big question, I know.
Yeah. In the simplest form, it's how you're going to attract attention. That's the only way that you're going to attract. I say, when people say to me, "Oh, I'm not making sales," they think that that's their biggest problem. Your
Yeah,
biggest problem isn't that you're not getting sales. Your biggest problem is that you're not getting attention.
yeah,
You have to grab at there's three stages to getting sales, but before you actually get to the sales bit, you have to grab this attention. I used to do this in training with the people who did the stalls with me in my events.
yeah,
And I started off with the training, and we used to go through these processes. And I said, the first thing you have to do is to attract um, attention. So people are walking by, they've got stuff, they're doing stuff, they're busy. They may see a load of straws in the side of their eye, but if you haven't got something that's going to drag them in, then they're just going to keep walking. So if you're there physically, I used to talk about how are you displaying? And
yeah,
I call it your big shiny object. What is your big shiny object? It's not
yeah,
literally a shiny object, but it's something wow that's right in the middle of your display.
yeah,
Okay, so if you're thinking about things, then once you've attracted the attention, then you've got somebody to come over to you, but then you've got to keep their attention. So what are you going to do then? How are you going to connect with them? How are you going to express what you love? How are you going to showing your passion about it? Asking questions, listening to that person. Is it something that they really want? Um, Before then you get to the point where you're going to say, these are the offers that you have. So it's really breaking it down into that. So if we're talking about messaging in online, is how are you grabbing attention? Are you going to use what image are you going to use? What's your first few words going to be? You know, I do a lot of storytelling, so I might say, I remember I was writing a post about when I was doing an event, and I started it off by saying, we both stood there looking at each other. Nobody said a word. And I just put a full stop. And then I went on to the story, and it was talking about, how I worked with this venue and they hadn't done something that they should have done and all of that type of thing. But how are you going to grab attention in those first few lines? Okay. Then you get your story going, and then what are you going to do at the end? Are you going to ask them a question? Are you going to say, you know, reach out to me? Are you gonna, again, I've had this thing where I was talking to one of my clients, and the only thing that they seem to have was like, oh, well, have a call with me. And I think, well, sometimes people don't really want to do that. So what else can you offer? Can you say like, so for me, I say, oh, well, I'm offering a free glow up right now. So just contact me and get your free glow up. And like people are like, oh, that's great. So that'll get people in your space so that they can find out more about you. So what's your thing?
Yeah. And
Oh,
I
if you
think there comes a time when, especially on social media, that you see people are just link dropping. And I
yeah.
think people are link dropping too early when these people are
Mm,
ready to buy.
exactly.
And I think having the conversations first, so finding that, asking a question, getting them into your inbox, getting them intrigued and interested in what's going on and attracted to what you're saying
Yeah.
before you're like, come and buy this stuff, come and join my team.
Yeah.
They need
I
that
know.
relationship built
They
first.
really do. They really do. They need to understand it more. A lot of people feel like they know what you're selling before you've even told them. And it could be something a little bit different, than what they think it is. So you have to sort of drag them in and have that like conversation and build that connection with them, and then they will like think, oh, well, I want to know more, you know?
Yeah, connection is so key. And I
Yeah.
know both me and you, we have Facebook groups
Yeah.
where we build on that
Well,
connection.
I don't have that group anymore.
Do you not?
I don't.
Oh
I recently ended that group.
no. So tell me then, because I know a lot of people are doing this. Where are you nurturing that audience now?
I found that it's working. I mentioned my glow ups, and I found that that is working so well for me.
So you're
Um,
posting and then conversations in DMs.
Yes, I'm
I love
just
it.
finding, and I think again, find what works for you. The community thing
Yes.
worked for me. I started it back in 2019, so it's a long time. I
Mm,
had that group, for a while, and I felt like it worked in those early years, but then when your focus changes a bit more, and I'm finding that I'm going out more in person as well and meeting
yeah.
people. And then bringing in the glow up idea has given me more conversations. And
Yeah.
so I've realized that for me, um, people love that taste of what I do because it's harder for me to, even though I can express it and I do all the speaking, until I've done it for somebody, that just wows them.
Yeah.
They're just like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, she's
Yeah.
done it. Yeah.
I am very much the same. So I am introducing in February power hours, so people can come on weekly with me on an hour,
Yeah.
as a group, and they'll experience my training and my support within that
Yeah.
hour, so that they understand whether they want to work with me or not,
Yeah.
what I can do for them.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
I think not enough people do that, especially in the product-based industries.
Mhm. Yeah, yes, exactly. They tend to do it a lot in the service, but not
Yeah.
products. And
No.
yes, great. They need to do it with the products as well.
Yeah,
Wouldn't
absolutely.
that
I
be
mean, if you,
great? You have an online session like this, even if
yeah,
it's an online, and you're playing around with the products and showing
yeah,
people that. You
yeah,
know?
giving people an experience, if it's
Mm.
something that is fun and interactive,
Yeah.
showing people how to use the products,
Mm.
giving them a taster session or a learning session of some description. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
And I think that would set you apart from the rest and help
Yes.
get your message across because you can actually have conversations.
Yeah. And it's again, it's going back to this thing where what isn't anyone else doing that you can
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
You know, if you're doing something and everybody else is doing the same thing, it's not the thing that you should be doing. You need to think of
No.
something else.
And also talking about that, if you're doing something and it doesn't align with you or doesn't feel right,
Yes. Yes.
find the thing that does. Find the
Find
thing
the
that
thing
fills
that
you with
does.
joy when it comes
Yeah.
to your business.
The thing I always say is that when you're really passionate about something and you let your
Mm.
passion take over, you forget to be nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You're
You
right.
do. You do. You do.
Yeah.
And even if you will always start off with that like shaky, or, because we all do, the best of people who turn up to speak, we all have that little bit of the flutter or whatever in your stomach, or I've got to go up and speak. But once you start and your passion takes over, you forget
Yeah.
to be nervous.
Yeah. And I always used to say, I'm nervous because I care about the outcome. And that's
Yes.
okay for me to be
That's
nervous
the
if I
only
care about the
reason. Yeah, that's
outcome.
the only reason you need to be nervous. If
Yeah.
you're nervous because you're stumbling over your words and you whatever, because you're not sort of really putting yourself into your passion, or you're not passionate about it enough, or you're just going through the motions.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, like we started this whole podcast with people by people. And
Yeah.
if they don't accept you for who you are on a call, on a Zoom, in a conversation in Messenger, they're not your people. That's
No.
okay.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
But just be prepared to walk away and
Yeah. And
say, yeah,
if you're stumbling, if you're not the most professional, I am not the best podcast presenter in the world. But that doesn't
you're
matter. People who
fabulous.
like it, thank you. People who like what I do and people who get who I am will
Yeah.
listen. They're the important ones. The rest of them, jog
Yeah.
them on.
Yeah, exactly. Because all you would be doing is sort of you're wasting energy trying to get somebody on board that doesn't really,
Yeah,
gel with what it is that you're saying. And again, not everybody needs what you're selling or what you're offering. So
yeah,
be at peace with that.
yeah. As much as you think it'll suit everybody.
Yeah, I know. I know, exactly. It's to understand. I did this, when I was doing concentrating mainly on my weddings and events. I knew that I knew everybody needed a wedding planner. I knew it.
Yeah,
I knew when I started my business, I wasn't doing wedding planning for people who were like footballers or movie stars or anything like that. My wedding planning, it was for everyday people who needed that help. So I knew that I could do this, but they didn't know that. So it wasn't until I realized that, okay, I've got two different types of audiences. So going back to knowing who your audience is, the younger brides were, oh, they've been dreaming about planning their wedding since they were about five. And they were like, oh, I'm doing it myself and I've got all these things and I've made all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. They weren't my clients.
no.
My clients were the people who were maybe over 30, people who were professionals, maybe had children of their own. They were time poor. They needed somebody to help them plan their wedding. And so until I realized that, when I did realize it, I could split my potential clients in two, the younger brides and the older ones. And I created like a hire service for the younger brides where they could hire all the pretty stuff because that's all they were interested in. And I didn't push any planning with them. And then I could just focus on the planning for the older brides. So that's why it's so important to understand, because otherwise you would just be pushing against a brick wall all the
Yeah.
time trying to sell. And I was getting exhausted trying to sell to these younger brides, thinking, why didn't they get it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was the same. I used to stand at fairs and events and I'd watch people streaming past their stall going, you need to buy this stuff. This
Yeah.
stuff is amazing. And I know that if you have it, it will make such a difference to your
Yeah.
lives.
Yeah.
Yet they weren't interested. They kept
No.
streaming past. And I used to beat myself up about the fact that they weren't looking. It's got to be me. It's got to be my fault. Why
Yeah.
are they not buying my stuff? They weren't my ideal people.
They weren't your people. They
No,
weren't your
they're not my
people.
people, and
Yeah.
that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another thing. It's understanding as well. Where do you take, because when you know your people, you know the types of places to go to sell them, to sell to
Yeah.
them.
Yeah. Where are they hanging around online? Where are
Yeah,
they hanging around in your local community? You know,
exactly.
the difference between going to a little village church fair and or going to a shopping event, a pamper evening,
Yeah,
ladies' night. There's
exactly.
little craft market. Is a little craft market
Yeah,
with all the little knitted gubbins something where
yeah,
you want to be?
yeah.
Probably not.
I know. I know. This
Yeah.
is it. It's just really just thinking it through.
Yeah,
And
it is. Totally.
we can then stop making it so hard for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, thank you so much for being on here, Paula.
You were welcome. I've loved it.
Oh, good. Will you tell everybody where they can find you online? I will put the links in the show notes underneath, but just
Yeah.
a quickie.
Yeah, you can find me on my profile, on a professional profile on Facebook. So that's where I'm most active. So just look for Paula Burns. You will find me. There's a big cover photo on there, with, the fact that I'm a creative business mentor and what I help you with. I am on Instagram and LinkedIn as well, but mostly you will find me on Facebook.
Yeah, and you're like me with a very popular name, so we'll make sure that your picture is in the show notes
Yeah,
as well.
yeah, absolutely.
Just search through the thousands of Paula Burns.
Oh, you'll find me. You'll find
Oh,
me.
I'm sure. Thank you so much.
Oh,
We'll
you're
see you soon.
welcome. Thank you. Thank you for having me.